Terri Libenson is the author of Emmie and Friends. There's a brand new book called Remarkably Ruby that's out in stores now. We're here to chat all about it.
I'm excited to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about the story of Ruby and her friendship with Mia.
I created this book with a background character that I brought into the forefront, Ruby, obviously, and there's also another character that I just made up entirely. Her name is Mia, and they are ex-pals. And one has kind of moved on from the friendship and the other has not. And so the story kind of revolves around that. So there's a lot of friendship drama. There are some new friendships introduced as well. There's a class election. There is a brand new poetry club made at Lakefront Middle School. So a lot of fun, exciting things. And I hope you guys enjoy it.
Especially this age group, because when you're younger, you have activities that your parents either gear you towards, and this is kind of when you're starting to get your own identity and form your friend groups, and certain activities are seen as more positive than others, and it's tough for kids. And what are you hoping that this book, the conversations that parents have with their kids, or that kids kind of get to see in these characters?
Well, I think with all my books, I try and make them as relatable as possible. And that just means trying to come from an authentic place. Because even though I don't remember the day-to-day stuff that I did as a kid, I definitely remember all the feelings I had back then. And really nothing really ever changes. Those same challenges existed then as they do now, just of course with the added challenge of social media. But I just try and relate to kids on their level. I feel like a 12-year-old at heart anyway, all the time. So I think that really helps. And, I think there's some life lessons that are imbued in these books, but I of course try not to, hit people over the head with it. But I think they're definitely there because I get feedback from kids all the time about how the books tend to help them, which is the greatest compliment I could ever get.
Let's talk a little bit about Emmie, because you based the character on yourself. Looking back now, when starting the series to now, how do you feel that character still connects with you? And tell us a little bit about creating her.
Sure. Yeah, I wrote Invisible Emmie, my first book in this series, with no direction. I just kind of winged it. Very, very unlike all my other books where I tend to map them out. But yeah, I just decided to start writing it using that voice of myself as a 12 or 13-year-old. Because as I said, I really remember all the feelings I had. And so I just went in that direction. And luckily, as I started writing, a story emerged. I thought of a secondary main character. And of course, I thought of the most embarrassing incident that ever happened to me back in 5th grade. And I used that as, as this incidental point in the book where all the magic just happens. So, you never know. Anything bad that happens to you when you're a kid can be used in positive ways down the road. So it's all good.
Yeah, you never know how those stories are going to come back. You just mentioned something as far as those stories, but the characters of Brianna and Jamie, you had said that you created them off of like incidents that were inspired by things that happened to your daughters. Do incidents change? Do time change as far as like social media and how parents are now with their kids, or is everything really the same and everyone just has to go through those same stages?
I think social media definitely adds a whole new dimension to it all. Yeah, I used this incident that happened to my daughter. She completely gave me permission to use it. So Just Jamie is loosely based on what happened to her. It was all about exclusion. And I told the story from the point of both the excluder and the excludee. And that I think is pretty universal. I don't think, unfortunately, that's ever really going to go away. Whether there's social media or not, but definitely something that I think a lot of kids can relate to, and I think parents can learn from too. I know that I wrote it after I kind of cooled off from my whole daughter's incident, where I could sort of look at both sides. So I think there's definitely lessons to be learned, both parentally as well as on the side of the kid. So Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely, fans and new readers along can go ahead and learn a little bit of the lessons in Remarkably Ruby. The book is in stores now. And Terri, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.